I recently talked about the news about Scream possibly being rebooted, and I mentioned that Scream 1 is my favorite horror movie of all time and how much I love the Scream series. But I'll be honest, not every single one of these movies are great. There is one Scream movie in particular that I don't care for, that I have major issues with. In fact, dare I say, it's not a good movie. I am talking about Scream 3, and this will be an unholy rant. It's directed by Wes Craven. Once again, he has directed every Scream movie by this point. It's not written by Kevin Williamson. Kevin Williamson is integral to why I think the first two movies are as good as they are, especially that first one. He had some creative involvement with the fourth one, which is why I think that goes up. But for some reason, he was supposed to work on this movie, but he got fired in the middle of writing the script. And so they might have used some of his ideas, but ultimately the script was rewritten. And what we got was terrible. Let's talk about the beginning. Liev Schreiber, who plays Cotton Weary. Cotton has been a character really since the first film. Believe it or not, he was in small scenes here and there on the news involving Sydney's mother and the backstory about her death. And he was sitting in jail because he was thought to be the killer of her mom. Well, it was revealed that he wasn't the killer and that he was innocent. And the second movie kind of had him seeking for some fame and attention for payback for all that time he was in jail. Well, by this point, he has gotten that. He is wealthy, he's a talk show host, and he's doing well for himself. On the drive home, he gets a phone call from the killer or somebody using the killer's voice. And at first, they're flirting with him, pretending to be a woman. So this is different and weird because I don't think we've ever, no, we've definitely never had the killer use a voice that was not his Roger Jackson voice from the first two movies. Like, this is a completely, like, he's using the voice of a woman to flirt with him. And then you find out that the killer is at the house with his girlfriend and he kills the girlfriend. And by the time Cotton gets there, he gets killed as well. You have some confusion because the killer also called the girlfriend with Cotton's voice, and so she thought that Cotton was trying to kill her. So by the time he really gets home, she thinks he's trying to kill her. It's just, well, what? why why did we do this? Why do we have the killer using a voice changer of actual characters and actual people? It's it makes me sit back and think, how is that possible? How is this likely? Like, did he follow the characters around with the recorder and then sit there and edit for months and months to make up sentences of their voice, or develop a technology with that speech pattern? It shouldn't exist. There's no voice changer that anybody can buy easily online to make me sound like another actual person or a celebrity or an actor or whatnot. Let's cut to Gail Weathers, who is played by Courtney Cox. She finds out about this murder and travels to Hollywood because that's where they're working on a new Stab movie, Stab 3, which Stab was something that was introduced in the second movie. And I always found it to be fascinating because, yeah, if this is in the real world, like the first Scream movie is, Hollywood would try to capitalize on it and make a movie about it. Hell, they still are doing that in real life when it comes to real life tragedies. And so I love that. But to have a movie centered around the making of the movie, that's where you lost me. That's where I think if it's not interesting, then it's just a gimmick and you're doing it for the sake of doing it. Dewey, David Arquette, is working on the set of this. And so Gail and Dewey are reunited. Apparently, things didn't work out with them again. We just did this in the second movie where they ended up together at the end of the first one, but then it didn't work out. So at the beginning of the movie, they're awkward and things are weird between them, only for them to end up back together again. So what do we do in part three? We do that same thing again. Look, guys, if this is your third time trying to date and it hasn't worked out, chances are it's not going to. So we get Jenny McCarthy. She's supposed to be in the movie, the Stab 3 movie. She's talking to the director on the phone, Roman, and they're going over some scenes. And apparently the scenes have been rewritten and changed, only to find out that she's not talking to Roman. She's talking to the killer because the killer has that voice changer. So the killer chases her, and Jenny McCarthy, I'm not going to say she's a bad actress, but it felt like I was watching a scary movie. And I'm talking about the parody scary movies with her being chased and she gets stabbed in the back. Okay, I don't know if this is supposed to be the equivalent of the Sarah Michelle Gellar kill in part two, but it's definitely not as good as that. We finally meet Sydney, who is living in seclusion as a crisis counselor. She has a hotline that battered women can call and talk to her. And I do like this. I like that as a job for her. Somebody who obviously with her own tragedy, she's trying to help other people. That's all well and good. The fact that she's living in seclusion though, I mean, maybe you could argue that she's scared. She's been sought after by different killers for different reasons. And so she even gets the prank phone calls every once in a while. But okay, fine. The killer finds her phone number and starts harassing her and taunting her. You even get scenes of her dreaming about her dead mom as a ghost haunting her. And I just don't need any of this. I don't need the dead mom. I don't care about that. I would have preferred Sydney have left her seclusion on her own because she finds out that the kills are happening again and she wants to be proactive and that she wants to maybe help or do what she can. No, she was found by the killer anyways, so she doesn't have a choice, so she might as well just go there because what else is she going to do? Not great for a main character, for a motivation for her. The Stab 3 cast, because of these deaths, the movie has been canceled, scrapped, or at least put on hiatus. So the cast is together at one of their houses and they're drinking and getting together and blah, blah, blah. In fact, they're at Parker Posey's house. Yes, Parker Posey is in this movie. And the killer kills the bodyguard who, okay, whatever, didn't care about him anyways. And then they start finding out that the script is different and that the killer is killing people according to the new script. And there's even a moment where they're all freaking out, they're all screaming, and it's super annoying because all of the girls especially are screaming every time the lights shut out or every time the phone rings. And it's such a parody by this point. But there's a moment where the killer is faxing them the pages and they want to read it because they want to maybe be a step ahead of the killer, even though, well, he's sending you the pages. So obviously you're not going to be a step ahead of him. So reading it isn't going to change much. But one of the actors, Tom, he goes back into the house because they were trying to stay away from the killer. So they left the house. He goes back into the house to read the script, to read the page, only to find out that there's a gas leak and the killer blows up the house, kills Tom, and there's a huge explosion that just, Scream is not about huge explosions. It just did not fit this kill. You could tell it was just, hey, we have a bigger budget, so let's go for it. Randy's sister, because we knew that he had a sister, right? She shows up to give Sydney a videotape of Randy because, oh yeah, Randy has died. Randy in Scream 2 was killed by Billy's mother. And I go back and forth on Randy's murder There's a part of me that hates it, absolutely hates it, because Randy is my favorite character of the Scream movies. I relate to him the most. The way that he talks about movies and relates it to his real life, that's how I talk about movies. So obviously in the first movie, I connect to the guy. And in the second movie, I'm rooting for him to get with Sydney and to be the hero. And then no, he gets killed. Shocking, surprising, and I admit it also showed that they had balls. So that's why I can give them some credit there. They showed that they had balls, and they killed off a main character that maybe you could argue shouldn't have been killed off, but it showed that nobody was safe, and that's why I have to understand where they're coming from. But before we get to Randy's tape, we get a Jay and Silent Bob cameo. Because oh yeah, they're in Hollywood. Get it? Oh, terrible. Terrible. Wes Craven, who did you let convince you to do a cameo by Jay and Silent Bob? So on the videotape, Randy gives everyone the warnings, the rules of a trilogy, which is kind of funny that he would make a tape before he was killed in the second movie as a precursor of, hey, if I don't survive the second movie, which he didn't, or at least there's a tape to warn you guys of a possible another incident that may happen. It just, look, I get that they wanted to have Jamie Kennedy back and they wanted to have the character talk about trilogies in that way, but I don't know if this really works. It's just a reminder that, he even says in the tape that if you're watching this tape, that means I didn't make it. And it's like, well, what if he did survive? Would he have got rid of this tape and made another one for a potential fourth movie? So Dewey, Gale, and Parker Posey, they go to talk to certain people in the business. They talk to Carrie Fisher, who's playing a character that, very much like herself. And I do like seeing Carrie Fisher play herself. It was amusing. They talked to Lance Henriksen, who's a big-time movie producer. And here's a side plot where they talk about an actress that was used and abused in Hollywood and taken advantage of and potentially raped and done all of this stuff too because she wanted to get in the business bad. And you eventually find out that this person is Sydney's mother. And this is interesting. I admit, especially what's going on with the Me Too movement today and in Hollywood, and these producers who are being called out and actresses who are speaking out. Sure, it's very much like, wow, maybe Wes Craven knew something, and so he tried to make a movie about it. But if this was a different movie and this is what the movie was about, I'd be a lot more interested. It does come out of nowhere, and it doesn't factor as much into what a Scream movie is and what you want it to be. Parker Posey is annoying as hell. I have to talk about this because, look, Parker Posey has been in a lot of movies, so I don't know if it's fair to say that she's a bad actress, but every movie that I at least have seen her in, she has been annoying. She has been loud, she has been just over the top, she has been not believable, and it's no different here. She's supposed to be playing an actress that's supposed to be playing Gale in Stab 3, and so obviously she's following Gale around, Courtney Cox, and she's dressing like her and talking like her, and it's just not needed at all. Her death was very satisfying to see. Patrick Dempsey is in this movie, believe it or not, as Detective Kincaid. And he's a guy who, because he's a new character, they have to make all of these new characters look suspicious. I get it. But whenever he's trying to talk about trilogies and movies and his love for movies, he just came off as a guy that was trying to replace Randy. And in him in his position, him as a detective, I don't buy that he would be talking to Sydney about trilogies and about movies and how all bets are off and this type of dialogue that he has. And because he looks suspicious, I don't really care when he ends up looking innocent at the end. Dion Richmond is here as the token black guy. I don't dislike this actor or anything, but the jokes that he has and the one-liners and him just trying to be that comic relief, it's a role that I don't like for horror movies. You just have a black guy be there to be funny and goofy. It's almost like the black actress that they had in Scream 2 as Sydney's new best friend, and she was very over the top and goofy as well. Dewey and Gail, they're at the director's house, the Stab 3 director Roman. His birthday party is supposed to be going on, so they're at this house and they find in one of the closets the voice changer. And there's a bunch of different voice changers. And this is how, like, you can kind of figure it out, but this is the scene where they really spell it out that, hey, there is multiple voice changers that has all of their voices. It even has Dewey and Gail and Sydney's voice. And it just makes you think, no, this doesn't make any sense. This technology doesn't exist. But it's supposed to create tension of, oh, whenever they get a phone call and it sounds like Sydney, it might not really be Sydney. It just, no, guys, come on. Scream 1 and 2 were a lot more simple and still as effective and scary without any of this convoluted nonsense. So that's where you see Roman's dead body, only to reveal eventually that the killer is Roman. So he pretended to look dead because what? It's only because the movie was trying everything that they could to make him not look like the suspect because he was gone for so much of the film that they had to throw you off to make us think, oh, he's dead. And then you see that, no, it actually is him. He's played by Scott Foley, who is a good actor, but I do not like this reveal. First of all, it's the first and only movie where the killer is one person, which you can't buy. After the first movie, and then the second movie did it as well, you reveal that it's two killers. It only makes sense from this point on that only two people can get away with making the phone calls and killing as many people as they can and getting away with it as long as they do. For one person, it's too much involved. The phone calls, the voice changing, the planning, the trying to predict everyone's every move. One person believably can't do that. And maybe if the first Scream did just have one killer and it trained me to think that one person could, okay, fine. But you already told me that it's more convenient for two people to do it. Why go backwards and have it now just be one killer? Then he reveals to Sydney that he's her half brother and that her mother, because of the whole side plot of her wanting to get into Hollywood and sleeping with various people, she had a son that she was ashamed of and that she discarded, and that was Roman. And so he hated her for it. And so they reveal that he goes to Billy before the first movie and gets Billy to do the killings that Billy does. So you're telling me that Billy Loomis, a killer who was sick in the head, they already gave us an explanation of, well, one, he's just sick and he just wanted to do it just because. But then they gave us the actual reveal about the mother sleeping with his father, breaking up the marriage, and him hating her for it. And that was good enough. Don't give me this whole, no, there was somebody else who put Billy up to it to make him. No, don't undo the first movie. And don't undo the killers in the first movie just to try to make this all seem connected and feel like it makes sense. It doesn't, and I hate it. Apparently, originally, the script was supposed to be Matthew Lillard, who played Stu in the first movie, one of the killers. He originally was supposed to have survived that TV falling on his head, and he would be in jail only to somehow orchestrate some kills from behind there. He's working with somebody else. He'll eventually break out. And a lot of those kills were going to be connected to some high school kids getting killed. And that was the original idea for Scream 3, which sounds great. I would have loved to have seen that. But the reason why that got pulled was because Columbine happened. The massacre at the Columbine High School, which is terrible. And so I do understand why they didn't want to go in a high school killer route again. So they changed it. But you could have still reworked it to still have Stu come back and somehow be involved. It's a hell of a lot more interesting and a hell of a lot better, and a better way to have it connected to the first movie if you have it be Stu. But you have the fight, the tussle between Roman and Sydney, a character that you don't care about in Roman, and they make him seem undefeated because he's wearing a bulletproof vest and he won't die. And they even have a moment where Sydney fakes her own death, and you think that maybe she died, but then she turns on him. It just keeps going on and on until finally Dewey shoots Roman in the head, and the movie ends with them at Sydney's house, and Patrick Dempsey's there for some reason. Is he going to start dating Sydney now? Who cares? Dewey proposes to Gail because, well, why not? They keep breaking up and getting back together. They might as well just get married. I would care more about this. I would be, this would feel like more of a payoff for the couple getting engaged if they had still been together at the beginning of this movie, if they were still a couple, if they were still going strong, and if the only reason why they were separated was because Gail wanted to get back into reporting or get back into finding a story, and you could have still had some conflict without them being broken up. Man, this movie is a mess. It's a convoluted mess. The killer is a mess. Some of the kills are very uninspired, and they don't do Sydney, the character, a huge service. The last shot of her looking at the door to her house open and being okay that it's open because she now thinks she's safe. That doesn't mean that there aren't other random killers who will just break into your house. Like, come on, Sydney, you're smarter than that. You should be smarter than that. So, guys, clearly I do not like Scream 3. I have so much crap to talk about on why I dislike it. You heard most of it. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Scream 3? I know some people think it's their favorite one, which, woof. But let me know if it is and why. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.